your social security number.
Yeah.
Social Security is all Fs, which I assume is true for everyone here in the room. I participated in the accessibility testing of election machines in California.
For the top to bottom?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, cool.
And the subsequent one. And one of the things we found, and just an interesting sidelight, is that the audio interface for a blind voter is unintentionally, one assumes, being broadcast over RF, so that at almost any distance from the voting machine, you can listen in to what the person's hearing and how they're voting.
You chose.
Right. So that's exactly right. And so you can't help but wonder what else is available over RF. But I guess my point is that we found massive inaccessibilities in these machines. So to the extent that the disabled community is being used as something of a stalking horse or Judas goat for driving the DRE and computer industry.
There's been this very interesting co-option of the disabled community by the voting machine vendors.
Right, and my point is that there's a certain amount of hardening of attitudes on both sides, and it's perhaps time again to consider convening a more conciliatory set of workshops between those two communities so that we can find common ground. Because people with disabilities are citizens as well, and they want secure and accurate elections.
Right.
You probably know about a writer named Greg Palast who did quite the expose on what went down in Florida in 2000, and I spoke to him yesterday, and he cautions that possibly an even bigger problem than I guess what you're talking about would be the equivalent of black boxes and recording the votes, is now ES&S and these same companies have been hired to actually scan voter registration applications, and they get to decide who's accepted, who isn't, and they interface it with people's social security records and whether or not they suddenly have turned into an illegal immigrant, even if they were born here.
We actually have proof of that because it's being done in Philadelphia right now.
But not as part of this.
Not part of the study.
And so as far as solutions go, one thing might be to start with Barack Obama and go all the way down the chain of people running for office and put a verbal blowtorch up their ass to start talking about voting fraud and coming out against it and promising to fight
let me just point out, one of the weird things that's happened is that somehow problems with voting machines got identified as a Democrat issue, and problems with voter registrations has been identified as a Republican issue. And it became kind of senselessly partisan because this doesn't actually obviously affect one party or the other. So, but it ended up becoming polarized both between vendors and the disabled community and also between Republicans and Democrats in ways that have made it very difficult to make progress. That's starting to thaw considerably. So maybe we'll see some progress on that point. I want to also point out one other quick thing I should have mentioned before. One of the properties of an election is that there's a loser, right? The point of an election is not just to figure out who won, but it's to convince the loser and the loser's supporter that they lost. To the extent that there are these problems with voting machines, it makes it a lot harder to convince the loser to go away. So these problems, even if they're not being actually exploited, the fact that they're present is going to seriously compromise confidence in elections. So I think you get the last word.
What's wrong with the New York State voting machines? That's simple lever machines, mechanical.
So the quick answer to that is New York did this smart thing. It never bought any Help America Vote Act machines, and now. But the downside of that is they haven't actually been manufactured for something like 45 years, and there's like one guy with duct tape who knows how to repair them. So at some point they're going to need to replace them. So anyway, thanks.
Thanks.
I really think, aside from Jim Dixon,
In a few minutes will be our next discussion called Wikipedia. You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy.